welcome a man he's based in London right now, but he's going to tell us a lot about a very different part of the world and a very little different look at history of this amazing plant. So you please welcome to my humble podcast, Zhao. How you doing, man?
I'm well, thank you, Stephen. Thank you for having me on your show. Zhao, I live in London. I've been living in London since '92. But I was originally born in China, so I moved here when I was 9 years old. And by profession, I'm a technical product manager in software and online products. Also an app designer and also a software engineer. So that's what I've been doing for the best part of 15 years. And the last 6 years, I've been working on this little idea that I've had, which you may know as the Cannabis app, and yeah, that's basically what I've been trying to do. The Cannabis app is born out of a desire to want to have a legal and regulated home growing marketplace, and also a interconnected system to allow cannabis clubs to thrive anywhere in the world, basically.
Great, man. Can I just pull you back a little bit? And so I know a little bit about the app and the design, and I see on your T-shirt you have your logo. Tell us a little bit about the logo first.
Yeah, so this is the oldest pictographic representation of cannabis in human history. Yeah, so it's the Chinese symbol for cannabis, hemp. Also has meanings as adjectives, so numbness, tingling. But basically what it sort of represents pictorially is the cultivation of cannabis. Now, some people will say that it kind of looks like cannabis plants drying upside down, which it does a little bit. But the symbol is made up of two parts, really. So the first part represents wide, broad, because cannabis was broadly cultivated in China thousands of years ago, and it still is today. And the character underneath is meant to represent the cannabis plant, basically. It's meant to represent plants in general. And so this character symbolizes cannabis because it has a very long history in China. And so this is kind of like a foundational symbol of cannabis used in Chinese culture.
Wow, fantastic. And because we always, when we're kind of writing our discords and writing our different pieces around cannabis, we always refer to where it came from. It come from the East, come from China, and you're the first in the pharmacopoeia. It was the Chinese pharmacopoeia that we have the first references of. So it's an amazing ancient history that is attached to the plant over there. So you pronounce how do you pronounce? There's a pronunciation.
Yeah, so the Chinese character for cannabis is pronounced ma.
Wow.
Yeah, ma. So ma. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's spelled M-A, but obviously in Chinese you have different intonations. So you can have ma, 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 ma. So ma is like the second intonation for the word, basically.
Fantastic. Man, it's an amazing history, and I regularly kind of dig into it. Like I'm saying, you're writing pieces for websites and doing different things. That's that's where the history comes from. Before we get into the app, we'll get into your app and the technical innovation in a little bit. But before we do, so on the Chinese front, so I mean, that's the history. We know the history. The history is a grand, ancient history. But where does it sit in the contemporary context of the CCP, and the modern iteration of cannabis in China? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So there's 50% of the world's hemp cultivation takes place in China, right? So China still has a huge presence in the hemp cultivation world, mainly for fiber. But I think with the popularity of CBD over the last decade, people have slowly realized that CBD as a non-psychoactive, or let's say non-intoxicating component of the cannabis plant may have some medical value. And so businesses, governments in China have started to really recognize that fact. And so China already allows the cultivation of cannabis sativa, but with less than 0.2% THC for CBD extraction purposes in 2 provinces. And very recently, news came out that they've harmonized the CBD as a precursor element for pharmaceutical manufacturing. So it means that it can be marketed and produced anywhere in China now. So they kind of experimented with the cultivation of this controlled substance in 2 provinces. One is Heilongjiang province, which is in the northern part bordering Russia and North Korea. And the other part is Yunnan province, which is very famous for its botanical herbal medicine. And so these were the 2 provinces where you could cultivate with a license from the government and with inspections. And there were pharmaceutical companies, you know, a dozen or so that popped up in the last few years that specifically took biomaterial from the farmers who cultivated these plants and then extracted it for CBD. Now, during the extraction process, obviously, there's some trace elements of THC, and so they have to destroy that because THC is still a, you know, a controlled substance. But generally speaking, I would say the attitude towards cannabis is kind of, there's the public persona of cannabis as a harmful, dangerous drug, because that's the narrative that all prohibitionist policy governments,
the UN.
Yeah, the UN basically, and China is a signatory of the same convention as other countries around the world. So in terms of domestic communication, propaganda, it's always been, oh, cannabis is bad, because China has a very long history with drug abuse from the 18th century with opium.
The war.
Right. Right, yeah. So this kind of this sentiment is sort of ingrained in the Chinese mindset at a family level. So elderly people, they all have kind of remembered the stories, and so if young people kind of experiment with drugs, it would be like, oh no, you're going to get yourself into a world of trouble. And but I think that's just down to, again, like I said, it's just down to the propaganda of it. And because cannabis is scheduled in the convention previously in the same way as other dangerous substances. In fact, it wasn't even like that, because opium and opioids were in a different category to cannabis. But I think because in 2020, the United Nations they voted to adopt the World Health Organization recommendation to reschedule cannabis, to recognize its medical properties. I think that's something that you'll start to see happening in China in the future. Is that recognition that cannabis has medical values, and as we've already discussed, it has the very first appearance of cannabis as a medical substance appeared in the Chinese pharmacopoeia, and of course, Chinese people love traditional Chinese medicine. I think it's a very natural progression for China to eventually adopt medical cannabis and cannabis as a, you know, medication.
Or a positive regression almost, you know, to go back to the roots of the pharmacopoeia. I mean, so I mean, like you say, traditional Chinese medicine. Does it feature in any kind of way in traditional Chinese medicine?
It does. It does. I've come across a dozen traditional Chinese medicine recipes, formulas that involve cannabis. So it's been noted for use in postpartum depression, helping with constipation. It's said to be able to help with 110 different types of Feng disease. So Feng disease means mental health illnesses, neurological conditions, and this was already acknowledged thousands of years ago. So people could see that people who perhaps had seizures, now that we call that epilepsy, but 2,000 years ago, people would notice some people who had these seizures, when you give them cannabis as a medicine, that helped to reduce their symptoms and so on. So yeah, in the Chinese pharmacopoeia, I think it says, like, prolonged taking may make one fat and strong, but never senile. So we're now recognizing that cannabis has these sort of, mental, neurological, neuroprotective features to guard against things like dementia, Parkinson's, etc., etc. So yeah,
It is a very new, really. That's a new area of study that, and I think every couple of weeks we seem to be getting new studies, and particularly in those areas of dementia and diseases that is afflicting the planet in unison because we're all aging, and yeah, it's an amazing history that China has, and it's refreshing to hear that it's regressing in a positive way. It really is, you know.
Yeah, I think so. I think because a lot of Chinese travel around the world. They'll travel to places like North America, California, like the West Coast of Canada, for example, Toronto, Vancouver, places like that, and also because Thailand as well. So Thailand obviously legalized cannabis. There's a lot of tourism to Thailand from China, so you have a lot of young affluent tourists who they get what's going on around. They know what's going on around the world. They see it through social media. And they try it, basically. They try it on their way abroad. I've been to Amsterdam, I've been to the coffee shops, and I've seen, Chinese tourists, visit. So I think, yeah, there's a kind of growing acknowledgement that cannabis isn't so dangerous as people once thought. So I think we can slowly separate cannabis from opioids and opium itself as a topic. And because
it would be great because it's kind of like a little bit of the bad reputation going on at the moment, particularly with the fentanyl crisis that's engulfing Northern America, and so this is they're kind of, it runs like Mexican gangs source you have different kinds of pharmaceutical issues in China, and how things these compounds get out. And apparently, that's the drug cartels are sourcing Chinese inputs to create the fentanyl, which is a horrible, bad story, So, but that's not part of our story today. But we have to kind of acknowledge it, because it doesn't help, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I think that's born down to a lot of ignorance and propaganda, prohibitionist propaganda, conflating one thing for another when it really isn't like that. So I think, again, we're just focusing on the science and focusing on the data, focusing on the research and the published evidence around cannabis use. And so, yeah, cannabis can be used to treat opioid withdrawal symptoms, can help people in circumstances where, it can be helpful for relieving of anxiety, for example. And yeah, it has so many other medical uses for management of pain and whatnot. I think people are starting to recognize there is genuine scientific value in the cannabis plants in treatments of all these sort of problems that we have over the years with drug prohibition, with other toxic poisons like fentanyl, like you say. Yeah.
Coming from Ireland, it's like the biggest issue because we're so our prohibition is really strong, and to be honest, when we look at the kind of harm reduction issues, the real thing that the real harm has been caused by the prohibition, and we literally, you have drug gangs having unfettered access to markets and exploiting those markets to the last, and intimidating families, every level of it. That you're in the UK there, so all this thing with the county lines, all that stuff. So it is something we need to wake up and just regulate responsibly, as the Czechs say, our way out of this a bit. So you've got an extra thing that you're going to bring to the table, and that's what we're talking about before, about the innovation. So tell us about, because China at the moment, come on, you're innovating like crazy. I believe the high-speed trains, everything that you're doing, all the electric, the batteries. So come on, tell us a little bit about this so innovative thing that's going to transform the cannabis industry.
Yeah, okay, so that's the Cannabis app, right? Like, so basically, like I said, my background is in software, it's in digital, it's in tech. And as somebody who's used cannabis since my early 20s, I always kind of originally thought of it as just kind of like a recreational, relax amongst friends, socialization tool. Until more recently, obviously as I age, my body starts to deteriorate. And so I started to use it more for my personal health, physically as well as mentally. But what really kind of got me was back in 2018 in the UK, we legalized medical cannabis. And whilst medical cannabis was being legalized, it felt like everything else was getting ignored, like home growing. Cannabis social clubs, the right, like me as an individual, why can't I grow this plant in my garden, plant a couple of seeds, and the law says you can't do that. That's, you get sentenced for 3 years, like Gary did, for growing a couple of plants. And so for me, that was kind of, like a motivating factor. Is I didn't want to see cannabis become dominant by medical cannabis. Like medical cannabis has its place, and I truly value and appreciate the fact that medical cannabis allowed us to start having this conversation, but it kind of felt like there was a bit of a corporate takeover, monopolization of the cannabis space. And so my idea was I wanted to build an app that could democratize access to safe and legal cannabis, both from a patient's perspective, so that you had wider variety of products and producers and points where you can access it that is both safe and legal, and also from a producer's point of view. So I don't need to have 20 million pounds to invest in a GMP facility to grow cannabis to be able to sell cannabis, because I've got the right connections in government and I can get the licenses and whatnot, right? But I wanted to be able to make sure that people like myself, like you, like Gary, we could grow a couple of plants. And home growers, there are some really incredible home growers out there who produce quality beyond what medical facilities can achieve, right? And so that felt to me like a really a missed opportunity for everybody to participate. Like, why should home growers who have incredible skills and producing a great product be demonized and criminalized, where if you've got 20 million pounds you can grow weed in this country and sell it? I mean, it doesn't really make any sense to me. That's where the Cannabis app comes in. It's because we've got the technology to do seed to sale. We've got the technology to connect patients to doctors. We've got the technology to ensure that we have harm reduction built into the platform at the very foundation. So there are no under 18s, for example, who are looking at products or services or events that they can't access, basically. And so the Cannabis app is kind of this super app. I like to call it the WeChat for cannabis. So in China, everything is done through WeChat. You message one another, you pay for things, you book your tickets on WeChat. That's what the Cannabis app is for. So you can book an event at the Chilling rooms, for example, that's 18 plus. We've got age and ID verification built in, so we know that like, unless you have a driver's license or passport and you're over 18, otherwise you won't be able to pass the check, right? And so we've built all of these things into the app to allow us to have this kind of private community where we can eventually.
Can I just interject, man? Sorry to do this, but you mentioned Gary's name a couple of times and the Chillin rooms. So can you just tell me a little bit? Gary Youds, I'm going to have on a call, is the OG of British cannabis, let's call him, and the Chillin rooms is his social club that he's created and fought for and paid for with his liberty several times. Yes. in Liverpool. So just tell me to clear up that the relationship with Gary and the app and the Chillin rooms.
Yeah. So I met Gary in 2020. I didn't so back in 2018 when I originally wanted to work in the cannabis space and create something, I didn't know what to create. I didn't know how to create it. I sort of experimented with things. I kind of got into CBD a little bit, as most people did back in 2019, 2018, but that wasn't really going anywhere. And in 2020, I met Gary, and we just instantly connected. And I didn't really know much about him, but I couldn't be more honored to have someone with his reputation, his integrity, being the talisman for the Cannabis app to help us get wider recognition for the medical and for the recreational and health benefits, and just basically the economic and social impact having this sort of regulated homegrown cannabis social club model could bring to the country and bring to our local community. So that's how we kind of connected, and over the years, since 2020, we've been, I've been visiting him. He came down to London. He stayed, visited me. I've stayed at his place many times. We built up a friendship that allowed us to kind of work together to try and demonstrate that we can put into place this system of compliance, of regulatory compliance, even though none exists right now in the UK. But we're here. We've got this model example of how we can make cannabis social clubs more safer and more responsible, more compliant, with our technology. And yeah, just over the corresponding years, bit by bit, built prototypes, built websites to validate and experiment, and then eventually last January is when the most current version of the app was released. But it kind of also coincided with his most recent stay in jail, because during those years where I knew him, he was growing cannabis, and he was supplying cannabis to cancer patients for free, by the way, not charging anyone anything, to help people who are struggling because they couldn't afford it or couldn't get access to it. Medical cannabis clinics aren't really set up for terminal cancer patient care, because you need RSO, you need very high doses, and so like 10 gram of bud, 50 gram of bud a month isn't really going to cut it, right? So you need, somebody like Gary who's got RSO, who's very concentrated and can provide that. So
he's got a, I wouldn't say doppelganger, but he's got we've got a similar story in Ireland with a guy called Patrick Moore, who was doing exactly that, who was growing and creating oils, creating RSO oils, and having a real effect on people's lives. Crohn's disease, cancers, young kids with cancers, all of these, and having a very, very great effect. And of course, it's in Ireland. It's quite our viral is basically people talking. So it goes around the community that, oh, your man has great oils, and so Patrick then. He starts. He's nothing for profit. He kept everything meticulously, all the things, and all the details of every transaction, of the inputs, the outputs, all of that. Kept it meticulously, and then 25 cops rock up to him, heavily armed cops rock up to him and put him away and in the end he got 5 years, despite the fact that the actual people testified in his case were people with Crohn's disease. There was people who'd lost their voice, who got their voice back, all of those situations. So Gary is in that same mold, and so that's, how can these people be criminalized, and how can they have to live over with their looking over their backs and all those things? So it's very admirable that, that this is part of your cause. So sorry to interrupt.
So Gary has certain operational problems he needs to solve, right? Because you go to the chilling rooms, and I didn't know all of this, by the way, when I first met him. So I kind of learned as as we became friends, I've been to the chilling rooms and see how things work, and I could tell that he needed my help, because everything was in cash. There was no kind of like a record of who's coming in and out, no age ID checks, right? And basically, if you want to have a legalized and regulated cannabis social club framework in the UK, you need to keep records. If you want to have homegrown, you need to keep records of your compliance. You need to show that you're doing everything you can to ensure harm is reduced to the minimum, and that you have processes set up to handle things like this, to make sure that there are no under 18s, for example, in your club, and so on. So as I met him and as I learned from him, it's a real travesty that someone who's just doing absolutely really he's not doing any harm to anybody in his community, yet he gets sentenced to 3 years for growing 6 plants in his bedroom, and we've got a situation where there was a bit of violence in the UK recently, right, from rioting and rioters who attacked the police only got like 2 years, for example. So, you've got this sort of disparity between somebody who's doing something very peaceful, very harmonious with nature, and somebody who's, doing something violent and, physically attacking the police, getting very disproportionate sentences. And so, yeah, that's kind of the real motivation behind the app, is to wanted to be able to grow my own, wanted to see a legalized home growing market, legalized and regulated home growing market in the UK, and also cannabis social club scene in the UK, because I've been to Barcelona. I've seen how vibrant, thriving the community is in Barcelona, hundreds of clubs there. I just want to see that in the UK and legalize, not clandestine clubs that everybody running underground and you don't know what's really happening, who's really in charge of the clubs, if there are any connections to organized crime and so on, which is...
Well, that's literally, that is the problem that Barcelona is facing right now, is that there's a pushback from the latest kind of town hall. So every time a new mayor comes in, they bring in a new staff. And then, so one of the things is that they want to straighten out the clubs is a little bit of a target, because look, they've been here for 20 years. There's over 200. They've kind of, it seems that they've isolated 40 clubs that they're kind of going. They want to close. They're going to close them, and so it's exactly like I said. And many of the problem with the clubs, it appears, is that some are good, some are bad. The bad is, like, when I say bad, it just means that they haven't got the same records that they need to just demonstrate. But nobody can open a door without having the ventilation and all those minimum requirements happening. But what the clubs offer, I say it on here many times, the clubs offered me, for instance, the opportunity to have a trial and error process of finding what cannabis is. Complex. It's a complex medicine. We can't deny that. And it can be very individual, and so the clubs allowed me, to give me the experience to go and try strain after strain. I spent 2 or 3 years, constantly trying different strains, and then I settled down on the one that I love. And now I've got a terrace with several plants that I can legally grow, and it's both soothing to grow your medicine as it is to take it when the harvest comes. So we're all on the same page with that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's exactly where we're coming from. Is again, like I said, it's big thanks to medical cannabis community for legitimizing it and legalizing it. But ultimately, I think there's a wealth of human resource and human knowledge from the community that is grassroots, that is, in the clubs, that's in the home growers, that have decades and decades of real lived experiences that we can share with novice users, first-time users, to help them navigate that journey of finding the right dosage, the right methods of consumption, the right products, whether it's flour or concentrates or edibles,
peer-to-peer knowledge, that we have to have that communication within people who are actively using this plant as medicines, or as for whatever reason. The one thing I would like to get you just to is to clear up for me is, so how is the manifestation legally of a club in the UK? Vape lounges appear to be, are they legal? And
yeah, so vape lounges appear to be legal, right? And that's what we're trying to do with the chilling rooms, because chilling rooms has operated for 20 years in Liverpool, in secret, basically, in darkness, more or less. And so what we're now doing is trying to bring that into the light, transitioning it from the sort of secret, in darkness operational model into this transparent model. And the Chilling Rooms now is registered as a community interest company. So the official name of it is the Chilling Rooms Liverpool Harm Reduction Center, CIC, right? And so what we're trying to do is bring everything that used to happen in the dark into the light, and also we're bringing in technology that we want to deploy at the Chilling Rooms to help really kind of bridge the gap in knowledge, so that we're no longer ignorant about the type of products that we're consuming and what's contained within it. So one of the things we want to do is install a mass spectrometer at the Chilling Room, so that we could do on-site testing of bud, basically, not this sort of gimmicky THC testers for on the street that you see on social media, people trying to like chase THC. We want to understand the full the full plethora of cannabinoids, minor, major, terpenoids, organic compounds, everything, right? That is that you're consuming that may impact your experience with cannabis that you just don't know previously because there was no data there to tell you if it was safe or not. And so we want to install mass spectrometer at the chilling room so that we can, one, understand what is inside it, two, filter out anything that may be dangerous, such as synthetics, heavy metals, pesticides, herbicides, whatever, and also just add to that body of knowledge, knowing that we now have a full picture of what's contained with this substance at a point where this is the most likely point people are consuming the cannabis, right? And so over time, we can then build up a better picture of, oh, this bud that you've brought in is medical. Oh, does it really contain the THC and the CBD? Because we all know that as an organic compound, it can degrade over time. So what may be tested at the point of sale over a course of week, a month, may have degraded. So you don't, maybe you're not really taking what you think you're taking. Obviously there's been reported cases of things like mold and whatnot as well. And so hopefully we want to use our on-site testing facility to flag all of that stuff. But also, if you're walking in from the street, you've got maybe some bud that you bought from a plug somewhere, you don't know what's inside of it. You can bring it in, you can get it tested. And at the same time, me as a home grower, and this is where we're taking the future of this model is, I genuinely believe that we can have a legalized and regulated home growing and cannabis social club marketplace in the UK through our platform, through our technology, where every single gram is tracked and tested, right? So as a home grower, if I have 6 plants at home, okay, I can grow 6 plants and I can consume all 6 plants. And if I can't consume all 6 plants, I've got 5 plants excess that I'm not going to consume over the year. Well, actually, I could take that down to my local cannabis social club, like the chilling rooms, get it tested. We know that there's nothing dangerous inside, and then have that labeled and then packaged and placed on the shelf so that other members who may not be interested in growing, but also want to seek variety.
That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people, and we have to always acknowledge that. And growing is, I've been growing plants out here this year, and I was really struggling. Like I have good seeds and everything is right. I thought everything is right, but then what I've realized, I've got one plant absolutely flying, and then I have another plant, it's just stopped, and I'm going, what's going on there? So yesterday I had to go off to across the other side of town to buy more soil, proper pH, soil with proper pH levels. So it's not for everybody. We need to recognize that. And while I'm a great touter of the right to grow, and I think absolutely it has to exist, but the right to grow is kind of enabling people to help to grow for other people, and that's the essence of it. Absolutely. And so I love this.
Not everyone's going to want to grow. Not everyone's going to have the conditions or the circumstances that will allow them to grow. But those who grow, and and with those who grow, some are novice and some are more experienced. But ultimately, I think it's about widening the access opportunities for people so that I don't have to call my clinic up and when they have an issue with their supplies, which happens quite often, right? I'm not limited or constrained by those problems that the clinics have. I can go to my club and actually still access safe and tested cannabis that was grown by some amazing home growers that are just are just on it basically. They love their plants. It's like Wagyu beef, right? It's like it's like a totally different level. So that's what I want to see. I want to be able to improve the access to cannabis from a variety of safe sources, and that's what we're trying to do with the app.
I'm going to interrupt you again. I want to get into the economics of the testing. I mean, so it's like having a testing station inside the chilling rooms. Is that how they are expensive? When you get into the real good testing that will give you the terps profile, that will give you the full profiles. Tell me about the economics of putting them in the clubs.
Yeah, so So I've come across some very new technology. I say new, but it's it's been around for like a decade or more now. That was originally standardized by the National Institute of Science Standards and Technology, NIST in America. So I've come across new technology that will allow a test to take place in roughly like a minute versus say 10 minutes. And the consumables are just on such a low level that it can become much more economical to do these sort of tests. So rather than the machine can only process one test every 10, 15 minutes, now the machine can process a test every minute or two. Right. So we can cut that cost down by by a tenth, for example, so now if you go to do a test, it would probably cost you like £130 from a cannabinoid test. I think we can do it for maybe 20 quid, right? And you can just walk in and then do it. But the cost is that this new technology is expensive to acquire. And so I think initially what we may do is stick to kind of maybe last generation technology that is a little bit cheaper to acquire that capability for the chilling rooms. Yeah. And then work our way up to this brand new technology, which I know is there. And I've spoken with the manufacturer, got the cost and the delivery dates all sorted out. So, it's just it's a matter of getting the money. It's £250,000, by the way, for this machine.
And that's why I was asking the question, And I know a guy out here in Barcelona. He's a Rubens Valenzuela, and he has a testing kit that is. It retails, like he retails it, and it does terp profiles, it does the full kind of profiles, and but it's still in several thousands of euros for his kind of retail model. And so it feels like I just want to get that out to my viewers to say that it's not just a simple thing of drop your bud in the. It's not.
No. It's a little bit more complicated, but we want to make it as straightforward and streamlined as possible, right? So you can walk into the club, put your bud on a dish, and then we'll take that away and we'll run it through the machine, and then within like 5 minutes you'll get your results on the app, basically, of what is containing your bud. And then you can consume it, and you'll know when you're vaporizing that, this bud has X amount of terpenoids and X amount of cannabinoids.
So really, when you mentioned the figure there, you threw a figure out there, 20 pounds. But like I'm kind of thinking, so if you're a grower growing, then it's a service that you'd use. Absolutely, £20 is not something you're going to, you're buying your flour in also, so you're not going to do it like. It's an extra expense for somebody just using in the chilling rooms. It's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So for it's initially, like I said, we're going to probably go with last generation technology just to get our heads around implementing this capability first. And those machines cost anywhere between £10,000 to £20,000 as secondhand use machines from accredited labs, right? Like I said, these labs, they've got they swap out their machines. The last generation machines obviously come at a discount. But yeah, I think the use cases for the testing is very much geared towards enabling home growers to be able to certify that their product is safe and the cannabinoid and terpenoid contain is accurately assessed. I think for others could just be a novelty, like, I've got this bud, I don't know where I got it. I know where I got it from, but I don't know what's really inside of it. So you can go to the Chillin, pay 20 quid, get a scan, get it tested, and then that, whether to buy from the same source or maybe, maybe something else that's at the club, eventually that's much safer, right? Yeah. So again, all we're trying to do here is make cannabis more safer and improve the access to safe and legal cannabis, and taking that business away from organized crime, taking it away from unsafe places like the streets and with dealers that you don't really know, into a safe environment where it's a safe community. We know the people are locals, firstly, we know they grow locally, and we know that their quality of bud is exceptional because we can see the entire grow cycle on the app, because the growers will be posting videos and pictures, which they already do right now in our app, showing what processes they follow, and just the general health of the plant itself. So you can see weeks in advance before a product becomes available on our app, and start to place your reservations, because you're just so in love with the whole process of someone's grow, that you want to be the first to get that product into, to sample it.
Brilliant.
And so, yeah.
And there's also a kind of a slight oversight, I feel, that people in the broader public, like when you talk about the dealer is also, if the illicit dealer is also a shop of other illicit drugs. And so there's a big harm reduction, misstep there. That's why prohibition is a bigger problem than just how people perceive it and just buying a bit of weed somewhere.
I completely agree that the biggest harm caused by cannabis isn't the cannabis plant, but it's the nonsense laws that are not fit for purpose. And so that's what we're trying to do right now, is because the law in the UK hasn't changed yet around legalizing and regulating and licensing home growing in clubs. So what we're doing is the Chilling Rooms right now is a medical cannabis vape lounge, right? I'm a medical cannabis patient. I've got my prescription. I can go in there, I can sit down, I can vape my flower. The police can't do anything about it. They can't take my bud away. They can't really raid it. There's nothing illegal taking place. So what we're trying to do to reduce the harm is getting everybody right now who wants to go to the Chilling Rooms, who want to experience the amazing vibes and the energy at the Chilling Rooms, is to get them access to medical cannabis first, so that they've got the legal protection. So that reduces the harm, because then, if they get stopped by the police whilst they're driving, or if they just get stopped by the police in general for whatever reason, they're not going to end up with, they're not going to be in a vulnerable position where the police and the government can put them away into prison, or give them a fine, or create a criminal record or something like that. So that's kind of like an initial first step that we're trying to take right now, and that's why we built secure video conferencing, end-to-end encryption, into the app, so that clinicians can interface directly with patients directly via the app, and get them the medical prescriptions that they need, so they can go to places like the Chilling Rooms or other vape lounges that are happening around. It's a club. It's a harm reduction center. It's cafe.
Yeah, just a harm reduction. Okay, so I'm just wondering, is there a network developing? Because I know I've had Alan from Northern Ireland. Forget the town he's in, but he's in a town somewhere in Northern Ireland. But he would have been the first. He called himself the first UK's vape lounge or whatever. But he's there, and he's been there for quite some time. Stay Medicated is the name of his club. But is there a network developing organically?
We are the organic network. So you join the app, right? You join the Cannabis app. You go to Thecannabis.app. That's our domain name, Thecannabis.app. You go there and you can join the app, and that is your network. So we've had downloads in over 60 countries, so we've got members who are from Ireland, Britain, France, Germany, Spain, Mexico, America, Canada, Australia. We've got people from all around the world going through our ID verification process because they want to visit the Chilling Rooms. And so once they become a verified member, they've gone through our verification checks, they automatically become members of the Chilling Room, so they can then message Gary via the app and say, I want to come down on X day, and Gary will be there to welcome them in. And so we've got other vape lounge owners on the app as well, and so we want to broaden that scope to basically say, look, if you're a member of the app, you're verified. We want to be able to say, well, you can then access all these other places around the world that are part of our network, part of our Cannabis app, and it will save lots of headaches and trouble from keeping records and doing checks again. And so it's like one pass.
Hey, so I'm going to stop you again. So I'm going to interrupt you because I want to keep you. I'm very conscious of your time, and you're very generous with it. And so let's get into the app. Do you see it as an international app?
Yeah, it already is an international app by nature of the Mars symbol, right? And the fact that we're in Liverpool, we're already kind of bridging two very powerful communities, right? The English-speaking community and the Chinese-speaking community. But yeah, absolutely, it's all about connecting the world to our platform and making sure that the whole world has access to safe and legal cannabis, no matter where they are, and letting our technology, using our technology to help drive change in places where that isn't possible right now. So again, that's why we're working, Gary is so instrumental. He's, like I said, our talisman in the UK to try and push for that change in the UK, because it's long overdue in terms of the laws being updated to reflect the realities of drug prohibition and drug laws in this country. But yeah, like we want to be in the US, we want to be in Asia, we want to be in Europe, so that with one membership, you can travel around the world and find safe and legal cannabis anywhere you are.
So that's just in that sense. Yesterday, I was talking with Ben Stevens, who's the business of Cannabis, and so we went our little run around. It was an oversight of the EU block, a run around the block, and so I mean, do you see people in all the different regions and countries, particularly I'm talking different countries with different languages and different kind of their own cultures of their own? Do you see them hopping into, is it ostensibly a UK app? That this is what I'm trying to get to, a call to action at the end of this call, that we kind of go to people, you have to sign up. And so how broad is that you have to sign up?
The whole world. It's like a Discord server, it's like a Discord server. A lot of cannabis communities are on Discord right now, but like Discord doesn't facilitate all the compliance and all the safety and the security around the data and the privacy. And so we kind of feel like, well, if you're in Germany and you're running a club, well, you can use our app to manage all of your club management needs. If you're a home grower, you can sign up and set up and build your, and essentially build up your own kind of Discord-like community on our app, so that you can communicate with other members in your area, host events, learn about growing, review growers and clubs.
Share knowledge.
Sharing the knowledge, exactly. Yeah. So the future of the app is really like wherever you are, there is a little Mark community there for you to interact with, for you to be a part of, or create your own community
that will kind of organically develop it into its own regional language, kind of
use technology to help bridge those language gaps. So we've got, of course, AI to help with the translation, so you don't need to speak Chinese. You can still use the app and communicate with someone, let's say in 5-10 years you're in China and you're like, I want to get weed, right? And you can just chat into the app and somebody will be replying in Chinese, but you can just press the button and it will translate it for you to English. So we've got that multilingual feature coming up in the future. Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, and like I said yesterday with Ben, I said this industry is lacking proper innovation, and so this is what we need. And we need within Cannabis, there's another event called C Days, which is there's a polytechnic in Barcelona that is devoted to the plant, devoted to cannabis. It's got lots of different degree courses, and they're like, it's a proper university. And so the people in there, they're like, it's an innovation academy. It's the same as the two academies, that innovation academies I've been through in Ireland, in UCD and Trinity, but this is specifically for cannabis. So those kinds of what would we call them, nucleuses of they're out there, of people that are kind of within this space who are creating things like your app. And so are you kind of hoping to connect into those different?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think I want to connect all the most, I want to connect the best people in cannabis all around the world in our app, so that someone from the opposite side of the world can interact with someone in Barcelona who's doing these sort of educational courses and learn from them, right?
Have you any cons? Are there downsides, or is there any hesitancy happening?
In what sense? From
like for people to sign up, I find that there's a lot of there can be reluctance around people sharing information because of the nature of I've got on this podcast of mine, I've got patients wearing balaclavas, You know, people suffering from fibromyalgia, and they're wearing balaclavas because they can't reveal their identity so there's still a lot of that element to this industry, and it's horrible.
Yeah, the stigma is real, definitely. The stigma and the fear of being outed as a cannabis user because of the taboo associated is still very real. Absolutely.
Give me a bit of what I'm looking for. There is a little bit of reassurance on the. I guess it's encryption, but you're gonna is the answer. But so, like, give me some.
We have over 3,000 registered members on the app now.
Wow.
Right. So it's been literally just growing organically over the last year or so, and we've now hit 3,000 members. We've had about 6,000 downloads already. So you can see there's almost like a 50% conversion rate from downloading to being signed up as a registered member, right? Now the app uses end-to-end encryption. So all your personal private data that you may be sharing with a clinician or clinical service provider, only you and them can see the messages. If you're using any other platform, right, that's cannabis related, anyone in the middle, i.e. the app developer, can still read your messages, okay? Right. So this is the key difference between end-to-end encryption that we use and all the rest of the cannabis apps that you may have come across in the past. They do not have end-to-end encryption, meaning the app developer, the app operator can still see your messages and the contents of your messages. Whereas if I try to do that, all I get to see is a scrambled like text, basically. It's just a scrambled message. You can't make head or tail of it. And this is really important for me because I'm a very private person. Although in this particular capacity, I'm being public here because I want to see more people have access to safe and legal cannabis. But ultimately, your personal privacy is our #1 priority in terms of, again, back to that mission of safe and legal. We can't be safe if we can't protect your data and your privacy. You know what I mean? So this is being built right into the app at a very foundational level. When you message another member, your messages are truly end-to-end encrypted. When you upload your summary of care records, right, that record, whilst it's stored on the cloud, anyone tries to download that image or PDF or whatever, they'll just get a scrambled document that they cannot unencrypt or decrypt, which is very different to the clinics that I've interacted with. A lot of the clinics, they use off-the-shelf customer relationship management technology, services like Zendesk. For those who are in the know, you can do some research onto that. But these platforms don't end-to-end encrypt, which means that I ended up in a situation where I uploaded my summary of care records with all of my mental health, history and all my statements to my. Somebody can just literally click a link to that document and then download it, which is unfathomable from a privacy advocate like myself. I just can't believe so that's something that we've addressed in the app. Obviously, you can change your name to something anonymous if you don't want to share your real name. We don't store any of your personal details during the identity check. So we don't, we do need to know your date of birth during the identity checks to calculate your age. But after that's done, all that private information which you've shared with us through your driver's license or passport is erased, is deleted, right? So we're not even keeping that data on file because there's no need for it. All we want to do is make sure you're over 18 and that you have been verified using a legitimate document so that you're a real person, you're not a scammer or impersonator or someone like that.
KYC.
KYC, yeah, exactly. And yeah, again, it's just, we're fully GDPR compliant and we're also HIPAA compliant. So HIPAA is Healthcare Insurance Provider Accessibility Act, as a Californian regulation for healthcare providers to process and store data in a particular way. We're fully compliant. Right, so you can jump onto our app, you can change your name, you can delete your data, you can do everything you would expect from an enterprise, product, which is what we are. We are an enterprise product at heart, even though it's been developed by the grassroots community. We're on the same level as the major app players out there in terms of the technology that we use. So yeah, people should feel safe and can feel safe. and they do feel safe joining the app and also contributing to the app. And yeah.
Well, thank you for that, man, because that's an incredibly comprehensive answer to that question, which I do feel like I mean, I'm literally running this tiny little podcast here, and even getting people, trying to convince people to subscribe now, people, but trying to get people just to subscribe simply to where they're just getting notifications for videos that are good videos, I hope, that have value, and that's even a difficult thing. So, but that's a really comprehensive answer, and you convinced me. But it is a very important area, and I think particularly it's another, and I keep going back to this kind of regionalization, let's call it, of when you go out into Europe, their cultures are very quite different, you know. And even the UK, I mean, UK, you still don't have an identity card, and they will fight that tooth and nail, the civil liberties in all the, and as they should. And I've always been an advocate of privacy and all these things. And so in Ireland, they would be the very same, you know. They'd be, you know, we're holding on to our privacy, even though we accept that there is no privacy anymore. We know it, but we're still clinging to the idea, and it makes us reluctant to sign up to things. We need to be very clear that and comfortable that our records are safe.
I will fight tooth and nail for my privacy and all the members' privacy on our app, basically. You know, that's why that end-to-end encryption is kind of like a backstop from any type of snooping that government or the operators of the platform could possibly do. So that's just been ruled out from the architecture of the product itself, that's not possible, basically, you know.
No, people, you heard that coming from a Chinese man, so you have to know a thing or two about the protection of data and everything. Yeah. Okay, have you anything else to? I want to go to a kind of call to action to the people to sign up into the app. Is that the main goal at the moment?
Well, if you want to see a legalized and regulated marketplace for home growing and cannabis social clubs, sign up to the Cannabis app. That's it, basically.
There you go.
If you want to see that happen in the next year or so, you know, next year or two, that's what we're on the mission to do. Is we're pushing with our technology, with our advocacy, and the more members we have on the app, the stronger our voices become for calling for this regulated, legalized model, because we've got the technology to meet all the legal requirements under the current law, right? So we're already, so it's like we've got a ready-made oven ready solution. And
careful now with using terminology like that.
It's a ready-made solution to power the legal and regulated home growing and cannabis social club market, and so if people want to see that happen in real life, like, you know, not within their lifetime, but within the next few years, they want to see that happen, join our app, and the more members we have, the louder our voices become. And I think we have a real shot at making some real change happen because of the work that we're doing with Gary.
And when I spoke with Ben yesterday, while he wasn't able to, while there's a kind of is Starmer going to do anything? But the thing that Ben kind of said is he's got a massive majority, so that if he gets pushed into, not pushing him into a corner, but if he gets this Labour government who has this massive majority, if they can be convinced to kind of this is the way to go, and to gain from the economy of cannabis for the UK, then this will be a great backstory to it. My questions, I feel, about you've really dealt with them comprehensively, and so I'm signing up and I'm telling everybody that I know to kind of get on board, and we await its development, because it is an organic thing.
Yeah. It's an ongoing process, and you know, I'm so excited by the innovation that we're going to bring to the community through our apps in the years that is to come. You know, because honestly, you'll see us here in the UK powering hundreds, if not thousands, of clubs in the future, and you'll see us powering many more around the world. So it really can have a strong positive social impact and also economic impact in our local communities. So I'm really looking forward, excited to see, you know, the green revolution take place in our community.